Hello, how are you, lady? Episode 6 of Ladies and the Law, and I'm back here with your usual suspects, Brenda and Shiro. And since the last time we met, I can confirm that the President of the Supreme Court of Kenya and the Chief Justice of Kenya is a woman, and her deputy is a woman, and the registrar of the courts is a woman. So great day for being great day for being a woman. So last time when we were here, there was a somber mood in studio because we were discussing about divorce. And today we want to talk about children. Children are, precious, wonderful. Both of you have babies. I am hoping, they don't look like they have babies, do they? No. I am looking forward to having mine in future, but
Amen.
Children are precious. They can't defend themselves. So let's talk a little about children's rights. What exactly are the rights of children as enshrined in the Constitution in Kenya?
As you rightly mentioned, the children's rights are governed by the Constitution and the Children's Act. It's those two statutes that govern their rights, and the Constitution particularly mentions their rights to parental responsibility and care. So that's a major thing. They have rights to basic rights, basic needs. We are talking health. We are talking shelter, we are talking education, and so forth. Okay. Yeah.
Excellent. So within the Kenyan judicial system, what happens when children's rights are neglected? Where do you take these matters? Where do you start?
We have a court specifically ordained for children's matters, and that's the Children's Court. Of course, unless it comes to matters adoption, which now you go to the High Court for. But anything that relates to their welfare, their custody, their parental rights, etc., you proceed to the Children's Court for such orders.
Excellent. Shiro, as a woman, what sorts of questions do you have around what children's rights exist, whether it's within existing marriages or within a divorce or a separation setting?
Yeah. I think when we think of children's rights as the public, it is in cases where maybe you're no longer a family. I mean, you are a family unit, but you're not under one.
Yeah,
Yes, in the sense, yes, under one, roof. So the rights exist whether you're under one roof or not, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes.
That's very correct.
We can always assume
Yeah,
it's, in
true.
the case where, there are separations and such. Yeah, I think that would be important to clarify that our children deserve whatever rights that they should have. However, we can't neglect our kids now that we are daddy and mommy, right?
Yes, that things always happen in the best interests of the child, whatever the situation.
Yeah. I think what we need to clarify for our viewers is the fact that most ladies out there feel that, once I've had this child, and even in the cases where I'm not with the father in a relationship anymore, that man should provide for the child because I have custody, actual custody.
Yeah.
But that is not the case. What everybody needs to know is that parental responsibility is an equal right, and it's an obligation by both parents equally to this child, whether or not they are married. And that's a constitutional right actually to this child. So people need to know that the minute you bring forth a child to this world, you owe that child a responsibility jointly with the father if you are a woman, and jointly with the mother if you are a man, equally.
So if I have personal beliefs such as I get pregnant as a woman, I give birth, I take care of the kids, feed them, whatever, and the man takes care of their financial needs, that's not legal, no?
I wouldn't call it legal or,
It's societal.
it's
cultural.
societal.
It's
more.
cultural. It's what happens.
Yes,
When you
it's
live in a
more
culture
societal.
that largely believes that, then it could be, we could
Well,
be.
ideally, since parental responsibility is a shared obligation, I mean, it's only fair that if you're doing that, then the man comes in with his purse
Brings in
strings.
something.
Exactly. Because, I mean, and again, we go back to the societal beliefs and societal nature. You won't find the husband or the father of this child taking care of this child from morning to night, feeding the baby, washing the baby, dressing the baby.
but it's
They
rare.
could, but
We
it's
have-
rare.
we have
So it's for
achieved,
that.
so we are
Yes,
appreciative of that.
So it's for that reason that if you're bringing in that, then it's only fair that this other guy brings in, the other part of it.
No school. Hiyo ndio nini?
Until Monday. Until Monday. That's a mic.
Cute.
Hello, my name is Brenda. I'm here for you.
Okay. You okay?
Know that I'm here. What you want?
So, Brenda, you've mentioned responsibilities, and normally the converse of that is rights. And what I'm trying to say here is that if you have equal responsibility to take care of the child, then you also should have the equal right to enjoy the child and enjoy the experience of bringing up the child.
Yeah.
So where you have a situation where this is a couple that has been together, maybe perhaps not married, and they're separated. So you're, a baby daddy or a baby mommy. In the same way that you have an equal right, an equal responsibility to fend for the child, you also have an equal right to enjoy, spending time with the child.
What normally happens is, in terms of where, in instances where the mother and father are not together, then you may want to,
in the case of separation,
in the case of separation, or even not even a separation,
if you are
never together,
really.
exactly, because that also happens.
Yes.
Yeah, in those cases, you find that it can happen differently. These two parties can come together and agree on matters custody. And when we talk about custody, we're talking about actual custody. This is the actual possession of this child, who will be with the child on a day-to-day basis. And we are also talking about access. So which parent will be having reasonable time when the child is not on at this other parent's house or residence. Yeah, so the parties can agree. If the parties do not agree, again, this is where the Children's Court comes in. And the Children's Court, they can look at the circumstances under which this child was living, and look at the parties, look at their intentions, look at the parties' conduct. By parties, I mean the parents. Yes. Yeah. So once the court looks at all those, the court can come up with a ruling as to who should have actual custody of the child, and then which parent will be having reasonable access when the child is not, say, perhaps in school. So during the school term, these other parents can be having the child over for holidays. Again, custody can also still be joint, so equal. But then again, it always brings an issue when, with school-going children, because it has to be reasonable. So it's the parents again to look at, which school was the child going, for instance, if this thing was happening at the time when the child was already school-going. So for instance, if the child was already going to school in Langata, and this parent intends to stay in Langata, then that's something that can be considered. Okay. Yes.
Oh, it's just that itch over here.
That itch has come back.
It's come. I wanted to ask. Always comes when I'm a bit nervous.
Yeah. Are you nervous?
Always in front of cameras.
Oh,
yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yet. Oh, honey.
I think, Brenda, this is absolutely important for lots of people out there who are held hostage. It happens to men most of the
It
time.
happens to men, unfortunately.
Who are held hostage because, you know, maybe one day you were out late, and because of that kind of conduct, that's what they tell the judge, and that's why you're not a good enough
Father
parent,
or parent
and
to-
therefore you shouldn't be given custody.
It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but it actually happens. I've seen it. It has happened to my client even, and it is wrong. What I'd like to tell parents out there, whichever parent does those kinds of things, whether it's the woman or the man, just let the child be. This child has a right to parental care from this other parent. Exactly, from both parents. So you denying this child from seeing the father because you feel like the father has not paid maintenance for the past 2 months is literally denying this child a right to access to that parent, and it is unfair.
So Brenda, in the children's court, is there a bias in who is the primary custodian of the child? Because many times we see moms as the ones who primarily stay with the children. In a case where, say, for whatever reason, and there could be reasons, a dad is better suited. Is there a chance that that could be the case?
Very much so. Yes. There is indeed a bias, but I wouldn't call it a bias because it is something that is skewed towards the benefit of the child. So the court is always guided by the age of the children. For a child who's 10 years and below, it is considered that that's a child of tender years. So for such a child, ordinarily custodial rights are given to the mother, yes. But when a child is 11 years and above, one of the factors that are considered are actually the wishes of that child, because they are considered, they are no longer of tender years, they have a mind of their own. They may chime in and say, I actually prefer living with dad because of A, B, C, D, or I prefer living with mom because of A, B, C, D. So I wouldn't call it a bias per se. It is a bias, yes, but it's not really, because they just look at the benefits and interest of this child. Yeah.
But in the case a child is in those tender years and the mom is not really able.
Oh yes. The court always look at cases wholesomely, of course. So just because the child is of tender years does not necessarily mean that this mother is perfect for this child, or the mother will be able to take care of this child. Because again, parental responsibility, it comes and goes at times.
Yes.
So, and it's never there for everybody. We do have parents out there who are not the best for their children.
Some don't even, just simply don't
Exactly,
want
they
to.
neglect the children. Exactly. So in such So in such instances, yes, the father can actually approach court and say it is for this, and there's some even because of illnesses or sicknesses, like mental disorders and stuff. So you'd find a mother who's willing, but mentally not able. So it's for those reasons that the fathers are actually considered and given custodial rights to these children.
All right. I think another interesting part of the whole custody conversation is the financial provision. Now that we are not under one roof, but the child's needs remain, they don't decrease because, So how do the courts go about the provision? Who provides? Who does what? Yes.
In most instances, the courts, they never really want to look at the finances of the parties, because at the end of the day, just because a mother does not make as much money as a father, or the father does not make as much money as the mother, they wouldn't want to put those parents into that kind of position where you find that those parents indeed love these children. It's just that their financial capability is less of the other parent. So it's never really considered, but it might be considered in some instances. So that said, nonetheless, the courts always look at, like I've said, the years. So despite that, other than the age being considered and, the courts looking at which parent will go with this child, it is then that the court will look at what kind of contribution these other parent who will not be having the baby or the child, with them at that time, what kind of contribution they will make. So for instance, let me put it into context. This is a 6-year-old child in grade 1, Obviously, being a girl, say perhaps it's also a girl, obviously being a girl of tender years, she's been, the custody has been granted to the mother. So in such an instance, the court will look at the father's and perhaps make orders as to the education of this child, and that almost always comes from the father, the education and medication. So medical and education almost always comes from the father. Then if the mother, for instance, is not capable, she's not a woman of means, so to say, the court may also consider that and grant maintenance orders to this woman by this man, so that the father, who's not with the child on a daily, other than education, other than providing a medical cover, you probably give some stipend of sorts. So say 10,000 shillings per month to this woman to just cover for this child's entertainment, clothing, probably nanny, etc. And food as well, of course.
Okay. So in kind of rulings, do they consider that there's the input of the, say, primary parent, the day-to-day work that she puts into raising this child? Is that considered as a contribution?
Not really. That is more obligatory. It is not. It is not, because let me tell you why. If a woman was to come to court and say, look here, my contribution is waking up every day early in the morning and giving this child a bath and feeding the child before they go to school, dressing them and whatnot, the father can equally say, I can also do the same. So you understand, it can cause...
but I mean, we said it's in the benefit of the child. No one wants the child Monday is in that house, Tuesday is here.
And it is for that reason that it is not considered a contribution of sorts. It is more obligatory. That's you're obligated as a parent to give your child the care and the love they need. So and even so.
Sorry, I'm a bit passionate.
I know, I can see. I can see, but that's why maintenance orders come into play. So that's why you find that women go to court for maintenance orders, because they feel, I'm with this child, I do everything, I do A, B, C, D to them, help them. In as much as I love it, I need some help. So that's where now, through an affidavit of means that you file in court, the court can actually look at that, review it, and say, okay, well, the man can help you pay for gas, pay for entertainment, pay for food, etc. And they come up with a figure. That helps.
That feels a bit.
So you're happy now? She's happy now.
I feel better.
Wonderful. So just as we wrap up, just one additional question. In the case that you have a child who has one parent, or there are two parents that are incapable of taking care of this child, is there anybody else within the family setting or anybody else who could be granted custody of this child so that they get the love and care that they need?
Yes.
And even in the case of death of parents, for example,
it's possible. Ideally, custody of a child is always granted to the parents. So in cases where, in the scenarios that you guys are mentioning, relatives can apply, but it has to be through the courts, because again, custody is a legal issue. So you have to go through the courts, and for you to apply for custody, you may have also, either the parents may have given you that role to be a guardian to this child in case of their absence or mental incapability, or something like that. So it's either through the parents giving you that right to act as a guardian and eventually have control of the custody, or you as a party can just say that, look here, my brother is not able, he's probably in his sick bed, in his sick bed, he's been ailing for so long, he has this 12-year-old or 8-year-old, whatever the case may be, and this child needs care, this child needs to go to school. So I'm coming in as a brother to this parent, or as a sister to this parent, and saying, look here, give me custody of this child, let me take care of them and give them the care and love that they need, and which is also a right, really.
Excellent, Brenda. Wow, deep stuff, and important stuff, because you see people, you see young people, young children every day, and you have to wonder who has custody over that child. So I guess our takeaway today is that wherever you are as a parent or a person in the position of a parent, it's important for you to take care of your child and make provision for when you are incapable, so that that child or absent, yes, so that that child is always taken care of.
That's a good takeaway.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. I think we can put
Close it.
a bow on that today.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. See you in the next episode.